We're burning the midnight oil. It's so late. Oh my gosh. Time flies when you're getting all this information, and I have breaking news I didn't even have time to post about. So let's get started. Let's see what. Okay, see, there I am. This is day 1744 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks for being a whistleblower, okay? Being a risk, being a threat to the cartel tied with strings to the CCP in, on the military base, which is a national security threat. This is a big deal, y'all. This is Richard was exposing a very, very big deal, a national security threat tied to criminal trafficking, cartel tied criminal trafficking with strings attached to the CCP. Okay. And that is, look, those strings are all over Mexico, all over Panama. A very, very good friends in Panama. Um, lots in Mexico. And this whole thing of saying that we're not from El Paso, um, I want to make sure that everyone knows this. I was born at White Sands Missile Range. I'm one of the very few babies that were born at White Sands Missile Range, one of the suspected areas for one of the burials for our son's remains. Okay, um, because of course he was ADA. He was ADA. So, but I was one of the very few babies born at White Sands, not in William Beaumont, right there in a clinic on White Sands Missile Range. They opened it. I was born. They closed it. Very few babies born at White Sands. I'm one of them. My dad told me, "Hey, I have white hair because I was born in the White Sands of New Mexico, Donna Ana County." So I went to elementary school on Fort Bliss. I went to MacArthur Elementary School. My dad had to go to Korea for a year. We lived off post. I went to MacArthur Elementary School. I went to Bassett. And so I absolutely understand and have very why do you think we've gotten this far? Because of this understanding of the military and all of our connections in that area. My dad, when we were rallying for months, when we moved there for months in 2020, um, trying to get answers because we knew by then already that something very, very bad happened, that we were being misled by the military because the way they responded to us was evidence in itself of a cover up. And so we went there, we moved there, and for months we were at the gates. People saw us. We went over to Juarez probably 3 dozen times. Um, we we um, did food lines. People saw us. We handed out prayer candles. So many flyers we put up everywhere. We had our meetings there. So we knew that something was up because the people that we were talking with were shaking. They were shaking, and our soldiers were shaking, right? And they were absolutely up to no good. And we know that there were audits. We knew then, as soon as they said there were audits all over, that President Trump had started an investigation and audits, and we thought it was just on the guns because that's what we were told. And then, of course, we were told about the young girls being brought in, and then many others told us. We were told that they were extorting. Um, Money from our soldiers to leave, like the barracks during the lockdown, during that whole thing they were taken advantage of. And we reported all of this evidence, and that's why the command were forced to do a 15-6. The 15-6 was absolutely a fraud. We knew it because we sat in on the meetings for it, and it was just absolutely a joke. You could tell that there was a cover up going on, because the whole point of that 15-6 that Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe ordered to happen was to see if the leadership, the NCO leadership, um, was profiting off of, had unexplained money, from extorting, uh, from the soldiers during the lockdown, for the lockdown, to get around the COVID measures and everything like that. That was the whole point of that. And our question was, did you audit their bank accounts? Did you subpoena that information? What did the money say? And they never did that. They didn't do that. And they were so upset about that. And now we know why they were upset, because even Bernabe had a reason to be upset about that. And he was very upset about that. So you had to be in there with the meetings with us to see how they reacted to the questions and which questions we asked them. And you could tell, because the evidence was there. The evidence was right in front of your face that this was a cover up. And it was about weapons. It was about weapons. It was about, um, money. It was about corruption and criminal trafficking on Fort Bliss. It was about the criminal trafficking and corruption, and also the sex cult stuff going on, which includes the porn, the corn, the child corn. Am I allowed? I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. The child corn that, and that they were absolutely, targeting our own sons and daughters that were serving, our own service members in the barracks, by compromising the barracks so much that they could compromise and make a criminal out of any of our soldiers. Any of our most valuable assets could become, a target, and or you could smear them and people would believe it, because there was so much garbage going on, so much criminal activity going on, that they would believe it. And that's why, they could get away with their criminal trafficking within the military, right there on Fort Bliss, right there, the front door of the United States, the southern border, between El Paso and Juarez, right? And right there where I was born right there at White Sands. And one thing that I know, about, because I lived there, because of my parents, because of my mother being German, my father, Richard Walter Schnabel, I have a very German background. Even though my dad was born in Oregon, Portland, Oregon, all my grandparents spoke German. Um, and so, we were part of the German, my parents were part of the German American Club there on Fort Bliss, right? Because, at, White Sands Missile Range, that's where the Luftwaffe was. The German soldiers, most of them all officers, these, aero engineers. And, that's important to the Walmart mass shooting case, because who was a German Luftwaffe, uh, you know, um, airman, right? Who came to El Paso, who came to Fort Bliss, as a German, and stayed. And that was the very first victim. I believe he was the very first victim. Um, maybe I'm wrong on the numbers or whatever, but when you walk into the door, and, maybe I'm wrong. I should think about Memo Garcia and his family, and then the lady that, was also targeted in the parking lot. Um, but when you walked into, a Walmart, right where the McDonald's is, so the McDonald's is on your left hand side, and you're walking in, and the man in the video, he's, saying something very, very important, to the police officer. He's saying, there's a man laying there in his blood. Okay, there's a man laying there in his blood. He's not saying that there's multiple casualties. This is a real big point, and I need to probably play that over and over again and make just a little video snippet of that, because he's saying, "Officer, there's just one man laying there." And when the baby comes, right? With the man with the baby comes, he's going, "Who's that? Who's that?" Right? And he did hear multiple shots, but they, at that moment, at that door, by that very active McDonald's, by the very active, there's a vision center, right? Um, right there, that's a very active entrance because it's where the groceries are, right? That's where Ernest Christopher Grant would have been shot, because he said he was in the grocery area and then he had to go back to the auto center. That's where David Johnson would have been shot. And yet the man is saying there's just one man laying there. Um, that he knew of, right? Because it could have been back between the rows and all of that. And I'm not disputing at all. Thank you for coming on, Anicia. I am not disputing at all that this was a bloody killing. Okay, it was. It was a bloody killing. But the narrative, the justice is not there. The accountability is not there. And and I think that those victims, that includes Glennon Oakley Jr. also, and also our son, and many others. And this is where the breaking news comes in. And I've got a little bit of, I got double breaking news. I've got double breaking news tonight. It's very clear after reviewing all of this evidence and having what we have, because we have been, investigating for over 20,000 hours, which includes Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia and Danae Katzen, these con artists that are used by the media to lie, to be false witnesses, to be false sources, unreliable sources like Leilani Hart. They use Leilani Hart. They use Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia. They use Danae Katzen as a unreliable, a false source. So these are, and then later on, and all of this, hard evidence proves all of them as criminals, as con artists, as being in possession of Richard's credit cards after he had been killed. I mean, so the evidence confirms that them being a con artist, them being false witnesses, them being unreliable source is absolutely 100%. 100%. And I think it would be really stupid of us, and I hope I can use that word. It would be short sighted of us to think that they were the only unreliable sources, that they were the only false witnesses in our son's case and in the El Paso, the Walmart mass shooting, right? Uh, you know, if they are going to be unreliable sources, if they're going to be false witnesses, then we better be careful for others being false witnesses and unreliable sources. So we put out, a message today that if you were a witness and you're posting up, please state what you told the police, what was in your police report. Because if you're on there saying that you were a witness, right? And I'm not doubting that you weren't a witness, but you've got to be very careful, because if you did not report to the police as a witness, um, and in a mass shooting case like this or Richard's case, then that's a felony. That's a felony. So be very careful what you say online and say that you're a witness without saying I reported to the police. So we're trying to safeguard you. We're trying to absolutely safeguard you from committing a felony. And that is, if you were there, please, please first call the police and make a report. You need to report what you saw, because to not report, that would be a felony. So that's really, really important. Um, the other thing is that the evidence, after looking at all of Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia's information and her family's information, which includes the Ambrose family, which includes others, looking at that, and then looking at Alexander Gerhard Hofmann Roth. He's the German. He's a German laying there on the floor. He's a German national. We have confirmed that he never became an American citizen. We have confirmed that he never became a Mexican citizen. He is a German national only. And he was absolutely targeted before the Walmart mass shooting. Okay. So we have confirmation that he was targeted. There were problems before the Walmart mass shooting, with Gerhardt. There's motive. Okay, there's lots of reason for motive, and and you can see this. And I didn't post the main picture, because it's so brutal. But you can hear the man say it. He's laying there with just half his head. That was a headshot. It was a brutal headshot. That is an execution, y'all. And this is not like some random killing. This was absolutely a targeted killing. And there's just no other way to read the evidence. The evidence says this. I don't say it. I don't say it. The evidence says it. And so, and I just want everyone to know that a German national, so this is interesting because we already have it. The evidence debunks the whole racist narrative, and that was used against President Trump, right? So this was the whole forming of this negative was the Biden camp, the Veronica Escobar, the Beto O'Rourke. Beto O'Rourke wanted to be president. He has a lot of pull, right? He has a lot of pull, and so this was absolutely the Biden camp. Don't forget that Veronica Escobar was the co-chair for Biden. She had the purse strings for the Biden campaign. And then when Biden, that coup happened and Harris stepped in, um, Veronica Escobar was the co-chair. She had the strings to the purse of what, like $1.2 billion, and even went in debt with that. And of course, it was a lost campaign, but it doesn't keep them from attending galas, right? Just like what they did with the Walmart mass shooting, and then they went and did the fundraisers at the galas when they knew the Mayellas were the Crucius family, that it was the Mayella and the Crucius family, and they weren't telling anybody, and they absolutely knew it because they hobnobbed with these people. They hobnobbed with them, and so this is so they knew when a wedding was going to happen, especially to Patrick Crucius's brother, Brian Crucius. And Brian Crucius is an accountant. He's a certified accountant. They're in El Paso, living all these years in El Paso, married to Alexis Mayella. Okay, so this is so criminal, y'all. So criminal. And I didn't even talk about her brother. Her brother, not Patrick Crucius, her brother, but her brother, Michael G. Mayella. Okay, so these are, being in the DA's office and the FBI's office, and with Walmart cybersecurity, and of course her dad being in the federal courthouse, managing Judge David Guadarrama, the federal judge in the Patrick Crucius Walmart mass shooting case. It's just so much conflict of interest. This is so stinky, that you can see just with the little bit that I'm telling you, because we have so much more that it's hard to tell you. I'd have to do some kind of long uh 5 hours, 6, 10 hours, maybe weeks to tell you all of the evidence that we have. But this was what you need to know is that this was absolutely a Biden campaign cover up. Okay. And it was cartel tied. It was absolutely, there's a common denominator with the Mormons in this, um, and of course the military, and it was used to target. The narrative was framed. They colluded and framed the narrative with a false witness, false witnesses, lots of false witnesses, false information, false sources, um, to say that, it was a racist that it was a random shooting by a racist individual. And that is not at all what happened. Not at all. Okay. It's all been debunked. And so what happened? And we have, it's going to go years and years, and millions of dollars were spent, and we can't get to the truth. So we're bringing you the truth. We're absolutely discussing this, and anyone that says that the victims don't want this, the victims absolutely want this. We have been absolutely told by victims' families that they want this. They want justice. And to think that, their loved ones' killers are just walking around El Paso and Juarez is frightening. It's absolutely frightening and so unjust, because of all of the resources that we have provided, on the state and federal level, and millions of dollars. And, it seems to be that anything that Veronica has her hands in, and Joe Spencer has their hands in, it's just fraud, waste, and abuse, right? It's just fraud, waste, and abuse. So, so that's really big, big news. And then we have another breaking news that the lead investigator on the Walmart mass shooting case, which is intertwined with our son's case. Okay. So it's intertwined. So when you're a lead investigator for the Walmart case, it's going to include Richard Halliday. It's going to include the military. It's going to include the criminal trafficking, including the weapons trafficking and the drugs and all of the children stuff and the child corn, and it's going to include all of that, and of course what Glennon Oakley Jr. was saying, and having these operatives that are just really trying to be false witnesses, and um, uh, you know I'm trying to get the right a name, and I was writing down some. Oh yeah, to enforce, to be, instead of law enforcers, they're criminal enforcers, right? Criminal enforcers, absolutely. And they were going after Glennon Oakley Jr. They were going after us. They were going after. They're operatives. They're criminal operatives, to enforce, the criminal syndicate, right? So that's who they're working for. They went after Richard. They went after the whistleblowers. And you have false stories in the media, and the media is part of it, because the media is the one that allows these false witnesses, uses these false witnesses and these false sources to create and frame these very politically charged narratives, to control the people, to put in those curly Q eyeballs where you're just hypnotized and go, okay, whatever you want me to think. Well, I'm not built that way. I say, get behind me, Satan. Get behind me, Satan. Let me have the truth, Lord. And so, this is what we've been doing for over 20,000 hours, 1,740, 44, 45 days. And I can tell you right now, it is very, very, very strange what we heard today in the breaking news about the lead investigator. We do have his name. He was also the lead investigator for the Sutherland Springs shooting, where that was the Air Force one, right? The Air Force guy that had a history and they didn't put it in the FBI database, and he bought these weapons and he did this damage. And um, yeah, so the same investigator, which is very, very odd, was in this mass shooting for the Sutherland Springs investigating, and he was also, it was a little bit too much for him. He was also the lead investigator of uh, the Walmart mass shooting, which includes Richard Halliday's case. Okay, and so it's two military cases, right? The Sutherland Springs is Air Force, and and the Walmart mass shooting is also Air Force. It's the German Luftwaffe, because that's where uh, Gerhard Hofmann, how he, he was with the Luftwaffe for years and years. And, so he was very tied to Fort Bliss. And then, of course, Richard's case with the Army. So he was over both, and he had a nervous breakdown. So this is what we confirmed today, that he was escorted out by the FBI to a camp. And I believe, I'm not going to say the location because, but he was to a retraining camp. He had to attend a retraining camp. I hope I'm saying it the right way. So if you're in the FBI, please let me know. From this is what we're hearing from sources, is that he absolutely had a breakdown, and he was the lead investigator, and then he left the country. He left the country. So I think with his girlfriend, he left, who was also part of the FBI. So, he left the country. And this is, really, really abnormal. And as we go through the information that we have been provided, we'll release more. But we wanted to get that out as soon as possible, that the lead investigator has left the country. That's how bad it is. That and so that right there tells you that, this narrative that Sam Madrano wants everyone, Judge Sam, the most corrupt judge in El Paso history, Madrano, wants to tell El Pasoans that you can just hug and put everything past, and just put Patsy on the plane and everything's okay. No, no way. You got the lead investigator leaving the country. All right. Things are not okay. Right? The lead investigator is having a meltdown and leaving the country after being escorted by the FBI to a retraining center, and then leaves the country. So this is, huge breaking news that shows you just, evidence that confirms that things are stinky, and that absolutely a German national. And there were others, you have all spectrums of people getting injured in this. All right. You got a whole spectrum of people that were injured in this with huge diverse backgrounds. And you can say, oh yeah, for the most part, it was Mexicans, and then people from Mexico, or Mexican Americans, or whatever. But then you have someone saying, but anyone that lived and was connected to Walmart, which Patrick Crucius was, right? He was very connected. This was not a random choice. The Walmart wasn't a random choice. He said that is a very Hispanic Walmart, right? And so, of course, the demographics would be a high percentage of Hispanics. And here, you have, though, a German national being targeted before the Walmart shooting ever started. This is the confirmation that he was targeted for execution. Okay. That is, and he had a headshot. He had a headshot. And that it was a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. Um, and so that's not how, and then no one else beside, around him. You have the Walmart right there, you have the entrance right there, and you only have that one person that was targeted on a very busy Saturday. And so the pictures, the video of that just doesn't fit, y'all. It just doesn't fit. So we have a lot of questions. We're not doubting that people were not killed. Absolutely. We know that, but we want to know the truth. We don't want false witnesses, false news stories, false sources like Danae Katzen, like Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, like Leilani Hart that are criminals or all criminals, like Ambrice and so many others, like Natasia Paloma, total fake, total false. She's just a falsie. And you can't believe what they say, and so, you have to be very, very careful. And so we're asking, and that's why, we really talked about it today to say, look, if you were there, you need to absolutely say what you reported to the police because we don't want you to be charged with a felony. Okay. That's really, really important. We want the truth out there, so we have to stop those that think willy-nilly they can get on and uh, give us false stories. And of course, we had one lady that corroborated her 911 fire dispatcher position with an article, and I'll be talking about that tomorrow. That was really huge because that article really confirmed that everything was being kept from the dispatchers, that they weren't being briefed, they were taken off the incident in the middle of the crisis, that they weren't, like I said, being briefed or with videos so that they could understand with visuals what was happening there. Yeah, so and then, it's strange that this article was on the 29th of July, the same day as the article that revealed that Patrick Crusius had family of someone very, very important in the judicial system in El Paso. And then we looked that up and it was Mayela's. So that happened on the 29th of July, 2020. And of course, in July was our son and finding remains and all of that in July of 2020. And then, partial remains. And, it's just brutal. It's just hell. It's absolutely hell. So, so we want to get to the bottom of this, and we appreciate everyone's comments and sharing. It's just there's so much information coming in, and I really want to say thank you so much for this information about the lead investigator because I feel like that's super important and really, really big. It's huge. It's huge when the lead investigator that had already experience with Sutherland Springs mass shooting and with the military being involved in a mass shooting, that he would be assigned to be the head investigator of the Walmart mass shooting, which absolutely um, is connected to Fort Bliss too. And but then he had a nervous breakdown. Okay, he had a nervous breakdown, was all too much for him, and he was escorted by the FBI to a retraining camp center, and then when he finished that, he hightailed it out of the country. and our sources say with his girlfriend, that he hightailed it his out of the country with his girlfriend, who was also FBI. So that's huge, all around breaking news. And you know, it's Mother's Day, right? Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. Hope you read the Magnificat. I meant to I was working on this poem, but all this information is coming in, and I wanted to put up and hopefully tomorrow I'll have time to finish off my poem and put it up for Mother's Day. For all you mothers out there that have just sent loving, loving, loving messages to me, and all the prayers. We need all the prayers because this is so dangerous, right? And that's why these live streams are so important. And that's why your sharing is so important. It is, really keeps us safe, and really gives us a measure of support. Whatever support is, like having bodyguards, right? You are our bodyguards. And so please share, and please discuss things. And then also, if you're a witness, put down um, what you told the police. Okay, that's very important, because that's all being scanned. Okay, all of that's being scanned, and so you have to be very careful. And then also, and we're so happy that the witnesses can speak now, because the case was sealed. No other mass shooting case has been sealed that I know of. Okay. And there's no, like, there's reports out there that, oh, there were people putting out social media videos. We haven't seen any of that. Okay, we haven't seen, and we've been, over 20,000 hours of investigation. We haven't seen any of that. So, not that I'm not saying that there isn't any. I'm saying that we haven't seen it. We're the ones that found the Medium article that is just absolutely probably the best article on the Walmart mass shooting case. Um, so, we're really trying to get to the truth here. And so, if you're not 100% sure, be really, really careful if you are a witness. If you are a witness. The other thing is this fire dispatcher confirming that it was just a mess, that even the dispatchers were being misused and abused. Okay, they were not being briefed properly. They were not given any kind of visuals. They were not even given the names of the victims. They were not. I mean, it was a mess. It was a total mess. They didn't know what was going on. So, and that really corroborates that whole video of them walking over the crime scene, right? Stepping on the crime scene and all of that. So thank you so much. God bless you. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.